Hello, guys, and welcome back to season 4 of What's Up, Doc, the true crime documentary podcast. I am your host, Gemma Delaney, and I'm here as always to tell you what is up with the latest, hottest new true crime documentaries that the world has to offer. Remember, guys, if you'd like to follow us online, we are at What's Up Doc Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok occasionally as well. And likewise, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review, and show your love in that way. So this week, I have a very interesting co-host or guest host on. So we've got Sarah Farris from Conning the Con, Clueless, God, Stop the Shooting. She's got so many podcasts, but Sarah's an absolute hoot. I met her at CrimeCon. We hit it off. And of course, I told her she had to come guest on my podcast. And so that's what she did. She agreed to come on, and we decided to review the brand new true crime documentary just dropped on Netflix on Wednesday last. It is the just absolutely mind-boggling story of the most hated man on the internet. So Sarah joined me. We had a little chat and it went something like this. The most hated man on the internet. Dun, dun, dun. Now, this was a complete fluke because me and you were meant to do a different true crime documentary. Mm-hmm. And then I said to you, did you see this one? Because obviously I have the alerts set up on Netflix. So Netflix sends me a little alert going, Gemma, do you know this is coming out this day? So I saw this was coming out on the Wednesday and I was like, hey, any chance you'd be interested in doing this? I'm going to ask you from the get-go though, and then I'll admit my feelings. Did you know of this case, Sarah?
No, I didn't know about him at all. And you know, when I read the title, I thought it might be that absolute toolbag Andrew Tate that's currently my most hated man on the internet. So I didn't know Hunter Moore from a bar of soap. Did you?
No, never heard of it before. But I find that a lot of the time with these documentaries that like they won't have necessarily gotten across the pond. So there might have been massive stories over in America, but I mean, a lot of stuff never comes over this far. So no, I'd never heard of him. And I'll go one better and say that I had never heard of this scene that he was part of either. That obviously...
I mean, I'd heard the term revenge porn.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it was like an actual, you know, like that was a brand that he'd kind of wed himself to.
No, I didn't realize that was like a phrase he had coined. I thought that was just, you know.
Or maybe he didn't. I mean, God. Oh, I hate the guy. But anyway.
So look, I always go through the formalities at the start, at the head of the show, just to get it out of the way. So yeah, the most hated man on the internet. It is currently streaming on Netflix. It is 3 kind of 45 to 50 minute long episodes, which that seems to be, as of late, that's Netflix's winning combination. So they've gone from like, you know, Making a Murder, which is like 13-hour-long episodes. Imagine they were making shit that long once upon a time, and we were committing to that as well.
I know, and hanging on every episode.
Just goes to show though how reduced our capacity to, you know, be entertained for that length of time has become over the years. Like that's it now. We can focus for 3 kind of 45 to 50 minute episodes and that's it. But yeah, it's directed by this guy Rob Miller, and I had to look him up, to be quite honest with you. The name didn't ring any bells, but when I did look it up, then he's done a couple of bits I've seen. So he's done like 24 Hours in Police Custody.
Right.
He's done other bits I haven't heard of. He did this one called Frontline just before the pandemic. And he did another one about this the trial of this oh God, what's his name? Ratko. I think his surname Madlik. I won't say Madlik. Probably absolutely butchering the pronunciation of that. And I had seen that. So I've seen some of his bits and pieces before, but it's produced by Raw TV. So they're the guys who've kind of done the last few bits on Netflix. So the, you know, Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey.
And I think they did Puppet Master, didn't they? I think they did the Puppet Master.
They did, exactly. So they seem to be getting a lot of production wise anyway, they seem to be getting a lot of the work with Netflix at the moment. And I have a theory on that, which we'll jump back to later. I'm going to see what you think. But yeah, you'd never heard of this either. I suppose I read an interview, or review, I should say, online the other day on The Independent, which is like Ireland's version of The Telegraph. And this guy had reviewed the documentary, and I thought it was interesting because he slated it.
Did he?
He gave it 2 stars out of 5, right? I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other, but I'm throwing this out to you just to see your take on it. So he slated it. He gave it 2 stars out of 5, and he said that since, now, and I think this review was even 2 or 3 days old, but he said that since the documentary has been released, that Hunter Moore, who is the subject, obviously, of this documentary, the most hated man on the internet, he has gained followers on Twitter.
No.
Yeah. And he's become more active on Twitter, where he had become this like gym bro, where he was just posting like gym selfies and dog selfies. So I suppose that's the first thing I'm going to say to you, Sarah. Do you think there's merit in what that reviewer is saying? You know, is this, do we bring these things to attention and to light for the purpose of the victims getting their stories out there and getting to say their version of events, or is it doing more harm than good in the long run, do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like we, so on my podcast, Stop the Killing, we have a rule that we don't name the shooters ever.
Oh.
Right? Because of the contagion effect. And I think this is a really good example of that. I think there's real power in a victim-led story, but I would question, and now you've said that, you know, I would question why we needed to know so much about Hunter Moore, actually, like his face. We could have had that story with, you know, him as an anonymous person in the story, you know, and there would be more power in that. I always think that it always needs to be victim-led. So it does slightly peeve me off that he's got following and we've essentially given him what he wanted.
And it's interesting. Also, the guy who did the review as well, he said that he felt it would have been, while he appreciated the idea behind in the documentary, he felt it would have been maybe more suitable to a book because incels don't read books.
That is so true. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, well, I think there's definitely value in the story being told. The value in that kind of warning to everybody else that this is out there, this is happening. I mean, you know, to my daughters, to, you know, whatever you've got on your phone, the fact that he could hack in and then take personal images, or the whole, even just the idea of revenge porn, it's really important to know. But yeah, I think he may have been onto something in terms of that it should have been more victim-led and we could have never known Hunter Moore's name and still have had a really engaging documentary.
Yeah. No, I do think it was interesting because I always do that after I watch something and kind of do my little notes just to see if there's anything out there that could sway me or something I hadn't thought of. And I was like, yeah, that's a fair point. I do feel like, though, me being me, I would have Googled Hunter Moore anyway. I would have got to the bottom of it anyway. So I would have found him. I would have found his social media. Now, obviously I'm not following him or anything, but I still would have done all that because I'm just a really nosy person.
I guess we've fed it up to them on a plate, though, haven't we? By putting his name in the documentary.
Yeah.
You know, there might have been a group out there that would be like, yeah, this guy sounds like my cup of tea, even if it was anonymous and you didn't know who the actual criminal in the story was. And you know, you've put in an extra layer for them to go and try and find who that person is. And I'm sure there would have been, it's click a button, there he is. You know, it's a lot easier for them now that they know his name.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true. And then I suppose we're jumping ahead, but I mean, for anybody who hasn't watched this documentary yet, or is just tuning into this first ahead of watching it, it's about the internet back kind of in its infancy, really. It's, you know, 2012, the internet was kind of like the Wild Wild West, wasn't it? It was pretty lawless.
Has it changed? I don't know that it's changed that much.
I know. It's true. But yeah, it brought us back to this time where, you know, anything could be said, anything could be done. And like you said, that's still the case in a lot of ways. But I feel like we're probably a more we're a more educated people, and the users of the internet hopefully are more educated people. But like even the term revenge porn, like that wasn't even a, you know, we hadn't had Me Too, we hadn't had Time's Up, we hadn't had this whole kind of movement that we've had, I suppose, in the last kind of 7-8 years. And we had this whole world where it was fine to share this information online. So this was this website called Is Anyone Up? And basically the premise for it was that if you had been wronged by a girl or a guy, but I would say predominantly by a girl, you could post the nudes that they had sent to you online. And not only that, their personal information then was being shared as well. So it was like screenshots of their social media, so their Facebook or Twitter or whatever. If somebody had a mobile number or phone number, that was posted as well. Addresses, coordinates of houses, all of this information was posted. And then what would happen is people will become aware that they were on the website by, you know, friends passing on this information to them. So that's kind of how we're introduced to, I suppose, the first victim or survivor that we meet, and that's Kayla Laws, right?
Right, absolutely. And I always think it's interesting because you think if you're the person that has found out that your photo is on there from a friend, you're like, is that friend on that site? Like, it's just, you know, like how does that information get from A to B? Like,
I know.
Who is the dodgy link in that chain anyway?
Yeah, and it kind of seems like the kind of thing that even if you didn't participate in it by uploading photos, it seems like everybody was on this site. Like it was nearly like a MySpace type thing. It was, you know, everyone was going on to view it, whether they agreed with it or not. They were partaking in it, and they were, you know, and again, it's that, I suppose, we're a more conscientious consumer now. We know not to do that, but I suppose years ago we probably didn't realize that we were feeding the beast when we were doing that as well. I'm just thinking of some examples, like from around the same time in Ireland, we had, I mean, I won't say it was similar, but on a similar thread, we had this news story that was trending called Slaying Girl. So basically, slaying in Ireland is like Glastonbury in England, and a girl was photographed performing oral sex on a man, and it was, I say girl because she was underage.
Oh,
yeah. Now whether the guy who was partaking in that, I don't know, but anyway, she was underage. It was widely spread online, and I remember that it was all over Facebook. It was all over, I think even Bebo was still going around that time. It was everywhere. And everyone was laughing. It was been, you know, there was no WhatsApp back then, but, you know, the equivalent, it was been posted around, and, you know, it was the hot topic. And this girl, although she was never named officially in the media, everybody knew who she was because Ireland is so small. And it ended with her attempting suicide.
Right, which is so often the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know what's really sad about that, Gemma, is even recently on TikTok, there's been an incident where that same thing has happened. There was I'm not even going to go into the details because I don't want people to look up the actual image or the video of it, but it was the same thing has happened. There was a fight in a public place. It was videoed, and that girl was literally, you know, hounded. I mean, I did read somewhere that she had committed suicide, and, you know, it's just life ruining.
That's it. And I suppose, again, maybe we are a little bit more aware of that now, but I feel like we definitely
I don't think
weren't.
we are. I don't think we are. I really don't.
I live in hope.
I would love to think we are, but I just feel like there's elements in society that you'll never change, you know, and that's what they hunt for.
It's true. It's true. I like to think we're more educated and maybe a bit more conscientious of a, like I said, consumer of things online. But I know just because maybe I am, the next person is, and, you know, it's that kind of thing. Who you are and who you surround yourself with, you assume then the whole world thinks like that as well, and you're dead right. It's not. And
I think also
it's not all daisies.
No, that's right. And also when you say who you surround yourself with, now these algorithms on these social media sites like TikTok and Instagram, it's throwing back at you the stuff that you've clicked like on. So you're only ever getting fed that same stuff. So you are, like you say, you are, as good as the people you surround yourself with. And if that's the stuff that you're surrounding yourself with on an app like TikTok, it just keeps coming at you. So when are you going to go, oh, I'm wrong. This isn't right. Everybody else is putting it up there, so it must be okay. When's that moment when people stop and put a line in the sand?
Yeah, no, it is. It's so true, isn't it? It's that echo chamber that you've, self-constructed really without even realizing it. But like I said, we're introduced to Kayla. She's kind of the first victim / survivor. And it starts with her story. So she's in work one day and basically gets a message from a friend saying, hey, you're on this website. She had heard of this website. But I suppose the intrigue and the mystery in this story from the get-go, and the thing I wasn't expecting, and I don't know whether you were or not, was that, she says she was really confused about this because she couldn't even pinpoint it to a person, because she had taken the images. She remembered taking the images for herself. And what happened was that the storage on her phone was full. So she had sent them to her email address.
Yeah.
So they were never for the purpose of well, maybe they were. I mean, it's nobody's business. But what she's saying is she hadn't forwarded them on to a guy. So there was no one to even contact and go, oh my God, you prick. Like, I can't believe you.
Exactly.
She didn't know where to go. She was like, how the fuck did these end up on this website? And that was a bit from the get-go that I wasn't anticipating. So, I didn't know the story. I wasn't familiar with it. But obviously, like I said, Netflix had said, hey, Gemma, this is coming out. Have a look. I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, so it's, a revenge porn type thing. Women are sending nudes to guys and then these scorn guys are forwarding onto the website. So literally within kind of the first 15 minutes, that preconceived notion is like completely abolished. And I'm like, okay. So there's this other level that we're instantly hooked into that we don't know.
Right. Yeah. You're like, how do they get the pictures? Like, is there something darker going on? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And like, then we're introduced to this Hunter Moore character. He reminds me of, I'm gonna get fucking killed for this. Kind of reminds me of Joe Rogan to an extent. There's something Joe Rogan-esque about him, I think. And he wants to be famous.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. He's completely like hooked on chasing the dragon for fame. That's all he wants. Psychopathic traits all the way. I mean, the thing that really scares you is when he sits on a couch. There's one scene where he's actually confronted by some of the victims on a daytime TV show or something. He's sitting beside them and he actually kind of refers to them as they're like avatars to him. They're not real people. That lack of empathy, red flag, psychopath.
Yeah.
And I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but my God, if that doesn't scream psychopath, I don't know what does.
And then we're introduced to, she doesn't play a massive role in it, but we're introduced to his then girlfriend, his girlfriend at the time as well. Like, that just blew my fucking mind.
I know, because what's he doing when she's going out with him? He's just literally saying the most vile, misogynistic stuff endlessly.
But I mean, aside from that, right? Aside from that, I'm even going to play devil's advocate and say that as much as I'd love to say I was, as socially aware and everything 10 years ago, I'm sure I wasn't. I'm sure I put up with shitty behavior from men and how they spoke about women. I don't think I ever put up with that much, but I think I've gotten, I've gotten less tolerant the older I've gotten. I think it was always there in me, but I don't know that I was as quick to jump on people when they use that kind of terminology 10 years ago. But
I don't think we had the permission to, though. We didn't have the permission to jump on people 10 years ago.
It's true, definitely. But even I was, like I said, playing devil's advocate, I was like, even from just the point of view of like, he's riding all around you. Like, that's not a hidden thing throughout the documentary, is that he was riding, because he had these like, because he had this kind of cult following, he had groupies and they were just lining up to ride him or perform sex acts on him. Like, she's not blind. Like, she knows
No.
what's going on, even if she's willing to, at that point in time 10 years ago, kind of go, oh, okay, this isn't cool, but you know, I'm going to go along with what he's speaking about women and two women. That just seems like a massive red flag on top of everything else, and a massive deal breaker on top of everything else.
But I guess, I mean, you can see throughout the entire like Netflix documentary that he is a master of coercive control. So she would have been right in the web of his coercive control because she was one of the closest people to him. So I think, you know, until you've been in one of those situations where you've been under somebody's control like that, it's really hard to comprehend the power that they can have over you. And, you know, you think about the things that he was making people do over the internet, and then imagine being in his actual personal space, what he could make you do. So, I mean, I kind of feel like she's probably, you know, suffered through even his first hello to her. I bet she wishes she could take all of that or take that back and never have met him. But
I think as well, she's probably, I know at one point kind of later on in the thing, it says that when his mum rings her at one point in the story, she's in school. So like, she's a kid really when she starts seeing him as well.
Right.
And probably just thinks he's the shit like everyone else did, you know. And look, when we're in our teens, mid-teens, early teens and late teens, I suppose as well, we're not as aware of those kind of, like you said, that kind of coercive behavior and all of that kind of stuff. But she actually features surprisingly little in the documentary. I thought I would have liked to have heard more from her, just to get that take on it, that because she was so close to him, I would have liked maybe more stories from his inner circle just to see what was going on. But like we said, Kayla is made aware that these pictures of her online. She goes home, she speaks with her mom, who she's got a really good relationship, explains what the situation is. And her mom is Charlotte Laws, and she's I saw her described.
She's a queen.
I saw her described online as being the Erin Brockovich of revenge porn.
That is such a great description of her. Yeah, she's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
She is a machine. Like, she is an animal. If you need something done, I feel like Charlotte Laws is the woman to get it done. So she takes it upon herself, because this is her daughter, and she's horrified that these images are up online, and obviously her daughter is distraught. She takes it upon herself to get these images down. So she does what any mom would do, and she reaches out to the website and is like, look, you know, these images of my daughter up, we need them taken down. She's clever enough to use like some law buzzwords as well, or legal buzzwords as well. She's like, look, it's actually copyright, because, you know, you don't own the copyright. The copyright belongs to whoever takes the photographs, and that would have been my daughter, and And she gets, I think, one response back from him, which is kind of like, you know, at first he kind of fobs her off, and then he just doesn't reply. I suppose, cutting a long story short, they eventually go to her stepfather. So Charlotte's husband, Kayla's stepfather, who is an attorney. I found it a bit strange that they didn't go to him from the get-go, but then given his response, or his, you know, immediate reaction, I wasn't so surprised.
I mean, his reaction was really disappointing, like, until it got to the point where, you know, he's like, just his response to it was, you just need to forget about it. You know, like that casual objectification and you know, not physical violence against a woman, but that's emotional violence against a woman is tolerated. That's fine. It's only when it got to the point where there was physical violence threatened that he thought, oh, hey, maybe now I should do something. Like, that just was so disappointing to me.
It really was. And I think, in fairness to him, it was really disappointing, but then I think it was brave of him to come on the camera and tell the authentic version of events, knowing that he was going to look shit. Because again, that was 10 years ago. Fast forward 10 years, we are now, hopefully, we pray that we're more conscientious kind of people, and that, I mean,
they didn't sugarcoat the family. I didn't think, like, they really didn't sugarcoat the family, which I thought was quite interesting. I kind of expected at the end it to be like Charlotte and her ex-husband, it kind of felt like it was going to go that way, because she just did not hold back. And he didn't like try and present himself, any different from what he actually was.
No, not at all. And do you know what? I nearly found him more endearing for it, to be honest.
Of course, yeah.
I found, at least he's being authentic about it. Look, 10 years ago, this was my reaction. Would it be my reaction nowadays? No, probably not.
No.
But like, I'm being honest with you about where my mind was. But yeah, so like, he's an attorney, so it kind of flabbergasted me that they didn't go straight to him, but they didn't. And like I said, you see later on why they didn't then, because he's just like, look, forget about it. Pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. Look, if you can't see it and I can't see it, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter that the rest of the world can.
It's crazy though, isn't it? In the meantime, I suppose there's a lot of stories going on at the same time in this. So there's a lot of kind of storylines is the word I'm trying to say. Storylines running concurrently in this documentary. So at the same time, then they're kind of jumping back to other contributors, and we can't name them all. There's so many people who take part in this documentary and just help kind of weave that storyline. But what I found was really interesting was the amassing of Hunter's cult online. Yeah,
the family, they're called. I mean, I don't want to even give them airtime because they sound like some sick mofos.
It's crazy. Really... But then again, I'm the same. But again, it's still happening.
I know
that could have been yesterday. Like, that is just because it happened back then. That's still going on. It's absolutely insane.
Those people will have found a new, horse to hitch their cart to by now.
Mm. Yeah,
that's what they're looking for.
It's crazy though. It's just it's this, it stems, I think, obviously stems from multiple things, but it stems from, I think, predominantly the fact that this site existed anyway is ridiculous. But then, like I said, these photographs go up, and then not only is there personal information, there's a comment section underneath. So there's a place. There's
horrible.
Like, maybe you don't agree, maybe you do, but I feel like that's where the scum bred, kind of, that's where they found each other nearly.
Mm-hmm. I think that's always the case in a comment section, because very few people that have positive things to say ever comment on anything. Like, you're either the extreme, you're either I'm really, really for this and I'm going to support it, or it's the vitriol, and it tends to be the vitriol that comes out in those comment sections. It's awful. Humans can be so awful to each other.
I mean, it's horrific. It's everything from slating their personal appearance, or their sluts, their slags, like all the fucking, all the traditional bullshit that we've all heard a million times. But what's worse? Like, that's worse.
What can be worse?
I know, but what's worse then is that you have this guy who's running this website, Hunter Moore, jumping into the comments, and he's actually egging them on.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's complete misogyny. It's where that whole, actual contempt of women is switched over to violence against women, and it's become an accepted thing on that whole website. That's their resting bitch face. I mean,
crazy.
Horrid.
It's just horrific. So yeah, he's jumping in. Like, so if there's an image posted and there's not comments under it, he'll then comment under it, and he knows, like, it's like the fucking Kardashians. Like, if they comment, people are going to go, oh my God, they're done. So he knows he's going to get reaction from that. So he'll jump on, and he won't even make a comment about the person. He'll just be like, let's tear this bitch down.
Yes.
That's it.
He literally chooses which ones he's going to, like, rip to pieces for. Yeah. It's almost like being back in the Colosseum, in gladiatorial times. Let's just rip people apart for entertainment.
And I mean, the term cyberbullying gets thrown around a lot. I mean, it can be everything from, more serious stuff to like that, just like, oh, I don't like you, or oh, I don't like the way you look. But it takes on a whole life of its own in this documentary, because while Charlotte, Kayla's mum, is trying to get these images taken down, the next thing is she starts getting emails. So not even it's not like she's commenting on the comment section of this website and been like, hey, you know, I'm this girl's mom. I want to stop. I want this taken down. She is then, so somebody is feeding that information to the guys in the comment section, and they are then somehow, we find out later how, finding out her personal information, finding out her personal email address, and she's actually getting emails, she's getting faxes saying that they're going to kill her, they're going to fucking rape her. And like you said,
terrifying.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Like,
I mean, that fax that there's one point where the stepdad reads out the facts that actually made him turn into taking some action. And he's reading it out, and it is so horrific that he's reading out these words. I don't even want to spit them out of my mouth. And they're talking about killing and raping his wife and his stepdaughter. Just imagine that. I can't.
It's just, it's unbelievable. And I mean, again, like you said, it'd be bad enough nowadays, but I feel like back then, I hope back then that wasn't, you know, it wasn't something that was, I feel like if that happened to me now, I'd be like, I know exactly what to do because there's laws in place. There's, you know, I know that I can go to the guards. I know that they, you know, I have enough knowledge of technology and the internet. I know IP addresses can be searched. I know that, you know, everything has a digital footprint unless you are fucking like, you know,
anonymous.
Anonymous or like Russia level hacking, you can be found. Everybody leaves. But I imagine back then it must have been so much more terrifying because who do you turn to? Like there is no, you know, police task force or, you know, there's no such thing.
But also, don't forget, no crime had been committed. That's the crazy thing. So, you know, the only crime that had been committed that he ends up being, and if we jump ahead to the actual what he gets convicted of, which was the hacking scandal versus the actual site was nothing they could get him on. You know, they needed to find, like it's that Al Capone theory where they catch him with, I think at Al Capone they get finally, not for any of his gangster stuff, but on a tax law, right? So the same thing happens with Hunter Moore, in fact, is that they get him on the hacking. They can't get him on anything that he's doing, which is just absolutely vile and creating this world of misogyny.
It's the first instance of it, I suppose, though. Do you know what I mean? There's never needed to be well, not the first, but it was probably one of the first instances of it. So there never needed to be a law for it before. It's like, you know, I always say as well, and it's not that fucking long ago that it was legal in Ireland, but like there was no such thing as rape inside of marriage, you know? So you're just, that was it. That was it. Like, I think that was only changed the year or the year after I was born.
Isn't that insane?
That blows my mind. It was illegal to be gay in Ireland up until the year I was born or the year after as well. There was a couple of things amended around the same time, but you know, just those kind of things, like it couldn't be prosecuted because it didn't exist. It wasn't a thing, you know?
No.
So it's terrible that it happens, but I suppose these things need to happen in order for us to be able to legislate against them.
It's true. But the fact that mother was the one that, you know, got the bit between her teeth and literally would not let sleeping dogs lie, with the fact that she didn't know who she was up against, because that I think was the scariest thing. If she was going up against just one person, the guy that was behind the website, that's one thing. But she had enemies everywhere that she didn't know. So she was basically could have been gone to the supermarket and a person could have pulled up in a car beside her and she wouldn't know if that was an enemy or, you know, one of the people that had sent her these awful, vile threats. Yeah. That's terrifying.
Absolutely. And I mean,
how brave she was.
Another instance of that, and there are many in this documentary, and like I said, there's too many contributors. We can't really jump to all of them, but I think one that really stood out for me was Destiny Benedict, better known as Butthole Girl. Just her. And again, like I said, she really, I think she, for whatever reason, I felt she really tugged on my heartstrings. I felt an instant connection to her. And maybe it was, like I said, I felt like it was a similar thing to the whole Slain Girl incident that we had here a couple of years ago. And that's a person that often crosses my mind. And I wonder where she is now and how she's doing. And so when I heard of her story, it was just heartbreaking. it's aside from anything else. I mean, obviously the whole thing is rotten to the core, but this is a girl who is amongst the most vulnerable in society. She is a young mum. She has no education. She has no way of providing for her kids. And so she becomes a sex worker in effect, an online, cam girl. So she's not exchanging any, I suppose, sexual favors. She is doing things to herself and people are paying money for it. But then
he exploits her. He exploits her. And you hit the nail on the head. She was vulnerable. You could see that she was a vulnerable person, and ripe to be exploited by an evil mind like him. I mean, he didn't even put her on his website. He recorded her and used it on a different website. So he probably, sold that video that he coerced her into doing. I mean, it's just so tragic.
And again, she's so young at the time. So I think she said she was like 19. She had 2 young kids. She was no longer with either of the kids' fathers. And she was like, okay, this website is blowing up. Is anyone up? And she was doing the cam work anyway. So she was like, right, I'm familiar with that. So I wonder, would I get more traffic to my cam girl page if I posted some images of myself on this website that's getting and for the time it was getting, huge traffic. It'd be nothing in today's terms, but again, back at that period in the internet, it was massive. So it was basically, she was going to advertise herself on this website in order to get more traffic to hers. So she did it herself, and she's fully transparent with that. But then it's the screenshotting again of her social media.
With the children in it. And he could have given 2 shits that her kids were on that. No. There was no line that he wasn't crossing.
No. It's a real, it's like you said, it's a real kind of sociopathic or even psychopathic way of she had put those images up there. And then he was like, no, we can do one better. I'm going to rip your life apart. Finds her Facebook, takes a screenshot. In the screenshot that he takes, there's an image of her kids. Her kids' fathers see this. And as a result, she loses complete. And she tells him this. She's reaching out to him going, please, my kids are going to be taken off me. Their fathers are disgusted and I'm not going to be let see them. She actually loses access to her kids as a result. And he's aware of this.
I know. He doesn't care. He completely, I mean, on my other podcasts, I've got psychologists and psychiatrists that go through and do the traits of a psychopath. And when I was watching this, all I could do was think, tick, tick. Yep, another sign, tick.
Yeah.
He just ticked every box. That whole lack of empathy and his ability to detach himself from any situation. He would find the utility in people. And what can I get out of this person? What's their worth to me? And it was just, I mean, they named it well.
Yeah.
Totally the most hated man.
But you've hit the nail on the head there. What is this person worth to me? So then the plot thickens, and you kind of touched on it briefly there earlier. He then bargains with her or barters with her, and he's like, well, maybe then we can do something whereby, if you provide a service to me, then I'll take down those images. And she's
ultimate blackmail. It's blackmail.
Oh my God, plain and simple. So the agreement they come to is that she will then provide various, it's like kind of freak show, images for him for his website, and he'll take down, and I'm not even going into it, if you watch the documentary, it explains what he talks her into doing, and how she then obviously comes up with a lovely nickname of Butthole Girl, you can guess. But yeah, so he but like you said, yeah, exactly, blackmails her into doing these fucking things, and she does it because he's holding her kids as ransom. This image of her kids as ransom.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
I was really surprised that so sometimes he would engage and take people's photos down, but it was such a rare occasion. So it really surprised me that he took down Kayla Law's pictures when the stepfather got involved. Yeah. I thought that was did you expect that to happen? they were refreshing the page to see in that 30 minutes time slot that he'd been given before they were saying, I just couldn't. I was like, no, he's not going to take it down. Why would he?
I didn't expect it, but I think it was more a case of the web is closing in. You know, he was getting frightened at that stage. You know, other people were getting involved. Like James McGibney, I suppose, was in his ear at the same time, and he's another kind of he's another kind of Charlotte Laws in this, except with he has a penchant for taking topless pictures with guns, which I know.
I know.
And that's so fucking bizarre. And I was like, just from a point of view, like from the editor or director, producer, like why were they even included? Like I found that really jarring. Like I'm really engrossed in this. I suppose it does provide a bit of comedic relief, and I don't mean to shit on James McGibney. He's obviously a stand-up guy and a good guy, and he's on the right side. But I just found that a really bizarre. Rewatch it, Sarah. Rewatch it now, and you'll just be like, what the fuck?
No, I was at the time. I was thinking, oh, have they just put in Putin's like calendar in here?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It was like that's all that was missing. Him on a fucking horse, like
and a
right
bear.
through the river. Yeah. So bizarre.
But I mean, I did love him, and he had some of the best lines in the show. I can't even remember. I was trying to remember what they were, but
you know what? I'm going to get you to go with that actually. So again, for anybody who hasn't watched this yet, James McGibney, who is he and what does he do in the documentary?
He is a cybersecurity guy, right? I can't even remember, but he was stealth. He was all about like taking things down on the internet. Anyway,
he's this anti-bullying activist.
Anti-bullying activist, right? And he goes into the story of how his first bully was actually his father. And so he was really kind of so much so that he had a site called bullyville.com, which was about, you know, taking down bullies. So when it's interesting the way that they connected in the first place. So Hunter Moore reached out to him and said, hey, do you want to advertise on my website? And he was like, okay, I'll have a look at the website, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, oh my God, this is horrific. But he plays the long con, which I really like. I was like half in, half out on that one. I was kind of like, why? I mean, it must be, I should know. I played the long con myself, but
this is exactly why I asked you to. I when this part of the documentary came, I said, "Oh, this is Sarah's jam. This was But
I was watching it like, God, he's really biding his time. And I was like, how is he going to get to his end game? But his end game is so spectacular that he ends up convincing Hunter Moore to sell him the website. And I don't know why he even agreed to that. So now if you put in the name of the website, it would redirect to bullyville.com. And he even made Hunter do like a public apology, didn't he? Did I remember that right?
Yeah. That was bizarre in and of itself. I feel like I like to think there's good in most people. And I like I said, I think I am an eternal optimist. And for a minute there in the documentary, I was like, oh, okay, well, look, he did all this bad shit, but at least he has finally seen the errors of his ways. And then he goes on, was it Anderson Cooper or Dr. Drew? I can't remember which of them he went on.
Anderson Cooper. Yeah. He absolutely lost
like,
it.
Yeah, the whole the facade was up for about 10 seconds, and he was like, I don't give a shit. Like,
yeah, and then, you know, like, so on Conning the Con, there's one thing which is my podcast. I don't want to keep going back to this, but this really like hit home with me. The psychologist on Conning the Con made a statement that really sticks here, and it was that psychopaths have two I can't even think what the word is, two personality traits, right, that they oscillate between, and it's charm and anger. So if they're not being charming, they're being angry. And it was at that moment when he couldn't keep the mask up any longer of being charming, because the utility there was that he would then get away with it if he could carry on being charming and convince these people. But he just couldn't keep it up. He couldn't keep the mask up for long enough, and that anger slipped straight back in.
Even for the 10-minute interview or whatever that he was on the show, he couldn't keep it going. So basically, for anybody who hasn't seen the documentary, what happens is when this James McGibney convinces him to sell him the site, the reason I suppose really he's easily convinced at this point in time is because, like we said, the net is closing in. So he can see the things are the shit's going to hit the fan. Basically, his lawyers are telling him the same, that he needs to, get rid of the website. And I think this is also the same time that Anonymous are getting involved as well. So we mentioned them briefly earlier. We weren't messing. They're in this as well. Did not fucking see that coming, Sarah. I might have.
I did not see that coming, but also, like, I love the fact that James McGibney, who is probably the head of Anonymous, was kind of like, I've got friends in Anonymous. I'm like, you are Anonymous. Come on. Yeah, exactly. I've just got some friends. They work for a little place called Anonymous, and it rhymes with the guy that I know there rhymes with Smames Malidney.
It's so true.
I was like, oh, come on, James.
God. Yeah.
Because, and then he was like, and I don't agree with everything that they were doing, but my God, I enjoyed watching what they were doing. Like, I bet you did from behind your keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't know if he was involved, but what Anonymous does is just genius.
Yeah.
And
they go for him. They are like, go 110% for him. They are ready to take him down.
Exactly. And I think the irony is he's built this whole world, Hunter Moore, of putting stuff onto the internet and you not being able to get it off the internet. Mm-hmm. And what Anonymous does is flips that on him and takes his entire life away from the internet and his bank account. And I mean, they declare him dead for a month.
I'm actually, in hindsight, having watched this documentary, I'm delighted I wasn't so familiar with the story, because that was such a good plot twist. You don't see it coming. You're like, of course, this is all this documentary needs. Anonymous then come in. And like
exactly.
They not only do they take his presence down off the internet in terms of his social media and all of these things, that's how he interacts with this fucking, mob he's got online, the family. They declare him dead. He's dead. What did he say? For like 48 hours or 72 hours, he's legally dead.
I think it was a month. I think they kept him dead for a month in a state where he lived. And the funny thing is, I was like, this is just typical of these kind of guys, isn't it? That he lived with his parents still. They must have been so proud.
Yeah.
But did they send dildos, like thousands of dildos that they paid for with his money out of his bank account to his parents and his address, obviously, because he lives with his parents, because he's, that's what they're like, these guys.
Yeah.
But also, I just thought that was brilliant. They donated all of the money out of his bank account to a women's shelter.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah.
Love them.
They're not around enough anymore for my liking. That was kind of, I suppose, 2012, when this all took place, that's when they were kind of at the peak, the height of their notoriety and fame. And
they're taking down Russia. They're taking down Russia at the moment. Yeah. I mean, they've got their hands full. Give them a break, for God's sake, Gemma.
I know, but I loved being brought back to that time where everyone was gone.
It's so, I mean, and I love that. I love that. That was a great plot twist. The way that I thought he was going to get taken down, and I don't know if you thought this, but in my mind, because I always like to try and work out where a story's going, in my mind, I thought that the girlfriend was going to turn out to be underage, and that was how they were going to get it. And of course, so I was kind of waiting for this whole to be wrapped up in a bow, and I thought that's where it was going. Yeah. Did you have a thought in your mind where you thought it was going to go?
I think what I thought was going to happen was that obviously it was dispelled then pretty rapidly, but I did think, again, me being the eternal optimist, when he went on Anderson Cooper and he was there and he was like, I've seen theirs, because it doesn't just show that, it also there's audio snippets of him doing various podcasts, and he's talking about, look guys, online bullying isn't cool, blah, blah, blah. Like for a millisecond he shows remorse, and I was like, oh well, this is going to be a nice now conclusion to the story. He actually has seen the error of his ways. And you know what? Today, hopefully he's working for some fucking online bullying shelter, or he's working for, reform online.
Good God. No, Gemma, you are definitely an optimist.
I know.
I was not heading that way.
Yeah.
No, I'm too much of a cynic now. Met too many psychopaths along the path to be thinking they're going to change their
fucking too. I don't know how I'm.
Well, yeah, exactly. Come on.
I don't know how I'm still so optimistic, but I remain eternally optimistic. Yeah, so I will be the first to admit that I totally had it wrong. That's where I thought it was going. And of course, it does not.
No.
He picks up where he leaves off pretty much. So when the website is then James McGibney, clever boy that he is, gets that address and then redirects it to Bullyville. And like you said, even has this what's the word I'm looking for? It's like this essay, this open letter, really, isn't it? Yeah. From I don't know how the fuck he managed to get him to do that, but yeah, this open letter going, bullying's not cool, kids. I'm remorseful, and that lasts for 2 seconds, and then he starts doing this tour of America, going around like as a DJ.
Oh, and the crazy stuff that, and like they had like the Rolling Stones magazine following him around. And I just kind of thought that was really crazy that they were still giving him, like he was just still commanding this attention. And I think that's what happened to him, is he just could not stay away from the fame and needed to be feeding his little ego, essentially.
Yeah, and that kind of ends up being his undoing, because I'd say if he had just, shown some remorse, made up or otherwise, and fucked off, he probably would have been okay. But in the meantime, he's still pissing people off. The FBI get involved, of course, because he's getting so much traction now. So he wants this notoriety, and of course, it ends up being his undoing, because when he does go on Dr. Drew and when he does go on Anderson Cooper, it brings him to the attention of the big boys. So the FBI get in contact. They're like, how is he getting this fucking information? There's no way, there's something amiss here. And also he's out there parading what he's doing, and they're not going to let that.
Not hiding it.
No.
But also don't forget, like when the FBI get involved, they've got Charlotte Laws sitting there with the file of, the massive phone book sized file of, here's all these people. And of them, I think 60% or she comes up with some number that were all saying that they had not sent those photos to anybody else. They weren't even revenge porn. They were hack porn.
Yeah. She had done a lot of the groundwork for the FBI. I had this mental image of the filing cabinet in Bruce Almighty, and he opens because he talks, but he's like this fucking, like, she slaps out this big file on the desk, and you're like, oh my gosh, you really have done your homework. So she's been working on this in the background and from the get-go, and like there's, and you can attest to it, like, you don't fuck with a ma, like you don't fuck with a kid.
No.
First child, just you're gonna get it in the neck, and that's exactly what happened. So obviously the FBI finally do get involved. She has all this groundwork done, but it's easy for them then at that point in time to go, oh, hang on now. They have the software systems, all of those things at their disposal that she doesn't have, that I'm talking about, that we do have now. Like, I can go into the local Garda station here in Adamstown, in our local village of, population less than 300, and they can figure out the IP address. But this was in 2012, where this was like serious tech. So they're able to trace the IP addresses. And when he looks at all, and I can't even remember the FBI dude's name, but when he traces all the IP addresses, there's 2 that keep coming up again and again and again and again and again. And one of them goes to a name, and you're kind of like, come on, Hunter Moore. It's not Hunter Moore. It's this other dude.
Yeah.
But he's able to make a connection. It's, what's his name? Chris, something or other. He's able to make the connection between Chris and Hunter through a series of emails. And
the thing is, there's no hiding that they're connected either. And after these emails, that initially they could see that they were getting connection, they were having like some kind of email, but they didn't know what was in the email. But then 2 days later, these hacked photos were coming up. So they were kind of like, well, we need to get into their emails then. But amazing what they got, the technology. You cannot get away with stuff, people. But still, the thing that still sticks in my throat about that is that they still had to get him on the hacking charge. They couldn't get him on the actual revenge porn.
Yeah.
And then, there's one line in it, because I did think he might get also done for underage. And he says, when he was at the point where he sold it to Bullyville, he said, I was sick of having to trawl through pictures of underage kids. I mean, that was just how I didn't want to spend my day.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you sick mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, poor you that you've set yourself up to create this hideous world.
Yeah. It's so, and like, it's not even, you know, they mention it briefly in one scene where they talk about there's even like a paraplegic, pictures of paraplegic. They don't mention this in the documentary, but like, you know, I do a certain amount of research, not a huge amount after watching documentaries, but I'll kind of have a look and see, you know, where are the people now and da, da, da. And one of the things I discovered as well was that there was actually a whole section in Is Anyone Up? Could be a documentary in and of itself.
I don't even want you to finish that sentence, Gemma.
I know of women not only unaware that pictures were being taken of them, but on doctors' chairs, after surgery. So there's a whole other, I mean, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, that is horrific.
Yeah. So it's there. I'd say, you know, if you actually did a deep dive, the shit you'd come up with is horrific. But yeah, that was just me even just clicking on the first few articles I came up with his name, and yeah. So it went far deeper again, even than that, if you can believe it. But yeah, so it, like we said, the FBI get involved. He's finally done, not on the right charges, but he's done on some charges, and then.
Don't forget though, before that, he's threatening to do the second website, which he says is going to cause murders. He says, my next one's going to cause murders. He's so proud of that fact.
Yeah. This is when he's doing his little DJ tour set. Yeah. So he's doing this, I suppose, because the website is down at this point in time and he needs the money to come in. He's losing all that money from the advertising space that he has. And yeah, he's doing all these, like you said, with the Rolling Stones and press releases, press junkets, saying that he's actually in the process of building another website.
Oh, and that one, I mean, the stuff that he had planned for that one literally would have caused murders, because there was so much. He was taking it to the next level of information that people would have had exposed on the internet, which was terrifying. And
even, like, you know, with the existing, or, you know, with Is Anyone Up, they're talking to people who are, you know, teachers, and he's taunting them and saying, like, do you want to hang on to, like, this is the whole thing. The whole thing is horrific. But I think the bit that really got me was that it's not like he's Mark Zuckerberg providing this platform and it goes bad. He is actively stirring the pot, poking the bear, encouraging people to, you know, contact that girl's school, contact her employers.
Total God complex. He was choosing who was going to get the good attention and who was going to be ripped to pieces.
Absolutely. I think it finally comes about. I mean, and obviously he's finally jailed, albeit for fuck all. I think he gets 30 months or something, does he?
So disappointing, as usual. You know, they got nothing. I think the hacker got more than he did, didn't he?
Well, it was much of a much. It was like maybe,
it was like 30 months and 24 months, and they would have been out
like
and whatever. And then the only other thing was that he got banned from the social media platforms. But do you know what I did do just before I got on this with you? I did what you do. Where is he now? Where is that motherfucker now? Because I was like, oh, I bet he's just back to his old tricks because he won't be able to stop himself. But in it, the article said that not only did he, you know, get pitiful sentence, but he also was part of the sentencing that he had to pay $145 in victim reparations. That's what the pain that he had caused was valued at. $145.
I mean, it's, I don't know why I'm still shocked and surprised, because like that's just, you know,
it's disappointing. I mean,
but it's in terms of, you know, rapes, murders, it's always the case. They never get enough. They never get enough, and it's not an Irish thing. It's not a UK thing. It's not a New Zealand thing. It's worldwide. It's always the way, you know. It'll be the guy with, you know, a fucking bag of cannabis that'll be put away for life, and then it'll be the fucker who's literally probably behind, we don't know, they don't speak of it, but obviously all the contributors that they mention in the documentary are still alive. But I mean, like, how many didn't make it? How many did succeed in suicide attempts? And you just don't know.
There must have been so many. I mean, there was the story in it with the teacher who got pulled out of her classroom. Like the teacher, and I was just thinking, that principal's just been trawling through the website, you perv, anyway. It's on you, you dickhead. Stop looking at it.
It's so true. It's so true. And then we were talking about, obviously, the little bit of research that we do post-documentary. And I was saying to you that article that I read in the Irish paper, The Independent, they said that not only has he become active on social, like he had been active on social media. So I don't know how lifelong that fucking ban was. He's
not allowed on Facebook, but he's allowed on Twitter. I mean, anyone's allowed on Twitter, aren't they? Clearly. Jesus.
Where's the sense in that? But yeah, they said and I haven't looked this up, I haven't gone and checked it out, but they said that if you go to his Instagram, his most recent post is a screenshot of the documentary and it's captioned "lol."
Oh,
that was 48 hours ago.
I'm fuming.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do not give him any traffic, people. Do not go near him.
You can't even put it down to, and not that you would, but you can't even put it down to, maybe, I don't know about you, but I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. Maybe he has learned.
No, Gemma, he's a psychopath.
He's just a fucking psychopath, yeah.
He's never changing his spots, ever. And if he looks like he is, it's because he wants something out of you.
Yeah, yeah. Would you recommend it? The most hated man on the internet. What's your takeaway from it? Would you recommend it to other people?
I think so, because it's a real, I mean, here's the catch-22 on that, I guess. Having had that conversation with you earlier about it, the contagion factor is real. But I feel like the people that I'm going to recommend it to are more like-minded people that will take away the message of this is a victim-led story. And it's interesting as well, you were talking about Raw Media that made this one. They also made The Puppet Master, which they did a really good job in that one, making it victim-led, I thought.
Yeah.
And
again, likewise in Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which was the last episode I did. And there's another one they've done recently as well, which name evades me. But they have done kind of the bulk of the stuff that Netflix has been coming out with recently. And I think definitely what you said, victim-led, like we've seen a massive shift in the true crime community. And so maybe what you've said earlier, maybe that's going to be the next step, that it's not only victim-led, but it's also the content is going to be there without naming, without showing, without, putting any light on the perpetrator. Maybe that's going to be the next step.
Yeah.
You could be a trailblazer in that.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm kind of half and half, aren't I? Because, if you think about the podcasts I've got, 2 of them name the con men, and with Stop the Killing, we don't name them because of the contagion factor with the mass shootings. So maybe I'm just as bad. I don't know. It's a really tricky one to navigate through.
It's not being bad, but it's a case of learning and growing. I'm sure you're not the same person you were when you put out your first season. I know I certainly am not.
I would still stand behind putting the fraudsters ones out there, because that is like they can change their names. They can't change their faces. So if you can Google and you get a picture of a fraudster on there, then they've got nowhere to hide. So it's more of a sort of a PSA. But I think this kind of thing, when he's got a cult following, that's where the danger is, that whole cult following, that he can coercively control a group of people and motivate them to evil. That's really dangerous.
It's interesting. I always, at the end, whenever I'm wrapping up an episode, I always give the rating it gets on IMDb and the rating that it gets on Rotten Tomatoes as well. And I think this one, it's gotten quite a low reception so far, I would say, just because I loved it. I thought it was a great documentary, victim-led, tick.
Yep.
Also, I just love a strong woman, tick. I love guys getting their comeuppance. Not much of one. Yeah, not much of one, unfortunately. But I mean, the whole anonymous thing, that was just brilliant. Loved that aspect of it. Loved the whole James Gibney, you know, is he anonymous?
Topless little
what is going on there? Yeah, absolutely. I still don't know what's going on there. But I just love that, even because you need that, right? In any documentary, I feel, and it's hard to get it in there, but you do need a little bit of downtime, because if a story is just incessantly heavy, people are just going to go, no, you know, a mind can only take so much. So there does need to be the little bit, and the whole anonymous thing, that was perfectly timed where they brought that in. So I liked all that. But yeah, at the moment on IMDb, it's 7 out of 10, which I would say is low. Although IMDb are quite hard markers anyway with true crime, because, you know, true crime.
I wonder what's their you know, what do they mark it on? Are they marking it on things like, is it victim led? Is it, you know,
I wouldn't think so.
Or is it just literally how enjoyable it is?
I would say it's more artistic, and you see, it's always going to be hard from a true crime point of view, because, you know, there's only so many ways you can tell a story. You're going to have to do reenactments, you're going to have to do, and that's perceived as being cheesy, and so I get it. But yeah, true crime traditionally is always marked quite low on IMDb, so I wasn't so surprised at that. But yeah, Rotten Tomatoes gave it 78, which I thought was low, but I'm going to put those two markings down to the fact that it's not even out a week yet. So it probably only has 10 reviews as opposed to 100 if it had been out a fortnight or whatever. So I think this one is going to be a grower, not a shower. And I think, that any of the kind of harsher criticisms it has gotten are probably going to be like with that article that I was talking about, where they're saying that, like, you know, we shouldn't be giving this man any airtime. So that's fair enough. If that's the reason you're going to mark this documentary down, I'd agree with that too, and I think you would as well. And like we said, maybe that's where documentaries are heading. Sarah Farris, tell us what you're at the moment. Plug everything. What are you doing in the world of podcasting and true crime, etc., etc.?
So for those people that have not ever heard of me, probably everyone on your little your podcast,
I refuse to believe that. And
different audiences.
If you're not already, you know, following her on social media, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You need to get behind. She's got a couple of podcasts. Tell us all about them.
So I've got Conning the Con, my first one, which is the story of my little sister's experience of dating a serial con man, and then how we turned the tables. We did a James McGibney, didn't we? So it sort of, but we kept our tops on. So that was good. I mean, I think it's a win, to be fair. And then I have a podcast called Stop the Killing, where my co-host is the former head of the FBI's active shooter program. So, you know, a really gentle little topic, that, discussing mass shootings, and then and prevention. And like I say, we don't name the killer in that one. And then my last true crime podcast is called Clueless, spelled Klooghless, because that's the name of the con man, Barry Clue. So that one is a story about a financial fraudster who conned pretty much a whole town for 40 years in a giant Ponzi scheme. It's a true story, and actually happened to my parents-in-law a month after my sister had been conned. So unbefreaking believable. You go 40 odd years without ever bumping into a con man, and then two come along at once. So crazy. And then I do have a little sustainability podcast called Guilty Greenie, which is more about my crimes against the planet. So there you go.
Yeah, so I said it to you, obviously myself and Sarah both appeared at CrimeCon in London this year, and I have been whinging for about the last 3 years, going, oh my God, it's so tough. I've been in college full time and then working part time and keeping the podcast going, and you're fucking working and like juggling, you know, 20 different podcasts. Helping your family. Do you know what? Just listen to you talk there. My family are so fucking inconsiderate. Could they not get conned or, you know, held up in a situation that I could make a fucking podcast about it? Like, I
think that's the fear that everybody who goes around me now is like, are you gonna make a podcast about this, Sarah? I remember when we were doing the true crime interview at CrimeCon, and somebody said, they asked the panel, where do you get your content for your podcast? And I was like, I just wait for somebody in my family to be conned. And then I write the story.
Bring in your mom, like, well, ma, I do. What's going on?
I mean, there's so many of them out there, unfortunately. So yeah, there you go.
Look, no, it's amazing. And you know this already, but in case my listeners don't. So at the moment, Conning the Con is the soundtrack to my workouts. So that's what I'm listening to as I'm working out. And it's great. It's great incentive. Like some people listen to music. I don't find music motivating. I listen to podcasts and true crime podcasts because I want to listen to the next episode. So therefore I will work out.
That's exactly right. That's what I do with the Netflix. I was on the rowing machine this week watching the documentary going, thank God Gemma gave me this to watch because I would be just sitting there stuffing my face and not doing this exercise. So yeah, I agree with you. Something to distract, right?
Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
That's all the time we've got for this week, guys. Look, as always, if you like what I do, remember to head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. It's how we chart. It's how we gain traction. And look, all this content we create for you, it's unpaid. So the least you could do. Let's be honest. Guys, it's been a pleasure as always. I'm Gemma Delaney. I'm your host. This has been What's Up Doc, the true crime documentary podcast. Good luck, good night, God bless.
Hey there, I'm Gavin Fish. I have a YouTube channel that's called Gavin Fish True Crime. I know, not very creative. But what I lack in creativity, I more than make up for in the lengths I'll go to in order to expose the truth. I dig deep into real crimes affecting real families that have been botched, mishandled, or covered up by police, medical examiners, and politicians.
Emily called my parents and said, I don't know how to tell you this, but David started a fire. He started himself on fire.
There's many indications that this fire started before she exited.
I don't know the answer, but when you tell me a stun gun, it's because I didn't know that either, then obviously that raises flags.
My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere. Oh my God, she stabbed herself.
Join me as I peel back layers of indifference, incompetence, and corruption each week. Just search Gavin Fish on YouTube or visit gavinfish.com.